Straight up 4 o'clock, and so we'd like to welcome you all to our July 14th City Council and Redevelopment Agency meeting. This is the 4 p.m. joint work session. Let the record reflect that all council members are present, with the exceptions of Councilmember Myers, who we expect to be joining us shortly. The agenda goes as follows. We're going to review our council meeting, a redevelopment agency meeting agenda. They're just the two items, the Thorstensen Building Land Transfer and Development Agreement Amendment. Any questions about that one? And then the Color Sky Homes Participation and Incentive Agreement. Any questions about that one? Okay, and then the meeting will go as typically does with the roll call and the public comment. So, oh, wait a minute here. I think I goofed up here. I missed the city council meeting. Sorry. City council meeting with the approval of minutes. We got Councilmember Ritchie here. Good on the minutes, right? And then the new business, city council midterm vacancy procedures resolution, which is just to get us in compliance with state law, so that we know how to deal with ties. And so that is just a kind of a housekeeping ordinance that we need to do. Any questions about that?
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
We'll talk about that in the work session also before. So you'll get a chance to see that before we get into the meeting.
Okay. All right. Any questions about either of those two meetings? All right. Next item then is the proposed Union Station Neighborhood Project Cost Sharing Agreement. We have Eric Gibson with us. At least I think we do.
There he is.
Ah, there he is. Okay, you're up. Teach you to be a couple minutes late. What? David was here a minute ago too. All right. You guys better do rock, paper, scissors. Figure out who's going to do this. Taylor, welcome.
Yeah, we can start with the first slides video, give David a couple minutes to get here, but we just appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of council to give an update on the Union Station project. It's something that I, along with Jared and David and a few members of our crowd that are here tonight, appreciate you guys being here, that have been working on for multiple of the past years. And so we're always excited for an opportunity that we have to come present and talk about a couple of these items, especially for some of the hard work that's been going on. I think, as most of you know, there's a lot of things that are happening at the station. We feel it's a very important piece of what's happening in downtown Ogden, and it has a very rich heritage. And we want to make sure we're trying to pay homage to all of those items. And so part of us giving an update tonight is there's been some work that's happening, some things that are continuing to go on, and we wanted to take an opportunity to maybe brag a little bit about how excited we are about what's happened and what'll be coming next. So looks like the first thing we have is a video, and so if we can play that, Brandon, that'd be great.
I carry my toothbrush with me everywhere I go, apparently. Okay. All right, well, I'm glad to be here tonight to talk about this really cool project that we've been working on for quite a while. And so Union Station, the Union Station neighborhood. How many of you were at the Union Station 100th anniversary, like the grand finale back in November of 25 or 4? And so it was, so I'm standing out in front, they got the drone show going, you know, and they're playing music. And then they put Union Station 100 years, and then they started playing Elton John's I'm Still Standing. And I seriously got emotional, and almost lost it. And so I was just like, that's so awesome. And I'm thinking, you know, as we're putting the time capsule back in there, you know, here's to another 100 years, but that requires a lot of serious stewardship on the city's part to make sure that that happens, right? And so the building's been there a while, the facility's been there a while. We've got a lot of interest in making sure that it stays there. And so I think we're all on the same page as a community in that regard, and we've heard that time and again over the last few years. This short video is on one of our websites, just showing a little glimpse of the glory of Union Station and the surrounding area. So today, we'd like to share how the years of planning, community engagement, and regional partnerships have shaped a vision for one of the most significant redevelopment opportunities in Ogden's history, I would say, and how we're moving that vision toward implementation. And why this matters. I mean, Union Station is a symbolic front door to Ogden City, and it has served in that role for many years. Honoring the past is what we intend to do, while also shaping the future of that place and the adjacent areas and downtown Ogden. In terms of the scope of this project, the property to the north and south of the station will be redeveloped, including new commercial, hospitality, residential, public spaces combined as a whole in what we call the Union Station neighborhood. We've had different names for it, but that one seemed to resonate with a lot of our citizens just because it felt warm. It felt like a place to gather, a place to connect with downtown Ogden. And so the project goal is to create a walkable, transit-oriented neighborhood that strengthens Union Stations as Ogden's cultural and transportation gateway. This isn't simply about restoring Union Station, it's about creating an entirely new neighborhood around it to support it as well. And so you can see there the parcel breakdown as a whole, close to 30 acres, but the Union Station parcel in the middle, about 8.5 acres, the south parcel, which Ogden City owns the majority of, and the north parcel at this time, most of which is owned by our friends at UCA. So we're going to be talking about some of that in the next few minutes, but this is a big opportunity, and as I mentioned, a big redevelopment project, probably the biggest ever for Ogden City, and it deserves to be that, I think. So under that banner of why this project matters, kind of a once-in-a-generation thing, our plan and our objectives really fall under three strategic outcomes. Restoring and celebrating Union Station is one of our best historic assets, if not the best. Reestablish Union Station as a regional transportation hub, serve as an economic catalyst to create a mixed-use neighborhood supporting housing, jobs, culture, and tourism. And so the project is about preserving our past, of course, while also investing in Ogden's future. So I entitled this slide "Building Momentum" because we're not just standing still. We are making progress, and I would consider it momentum for sure. What you're about to see isn't simply a sequence of planning documents. It's a story about how this project steadily built momentum through visioning, partnerships, community engagement, and technical planning. You see here on the slide there, 7 years of visioning, partnerships, community engagement, product readiness. That's a picture from the front cover of our downtown Make Ogden plan, our 25-year vision for redevelopment of downtown Ogden, which leads us to the next slide. So back in what you see across the top of the chart here is project milestones that will kind of guide our next few slides. And so we started this whole project, I would consider it starting way back in 2019 when we had the public engagement meetings at Union Station about Make Ogden. And one of the outcomes of that was, hey, one of the keys to downtown that needs to be considered and included in the consideration is the Union Station. So that certainly was highlighted as one of the key elements. And so that's where I would consider this beginning, at least this version of leading towards the Union Station neighborhood. And so we launched that, and then in 2020, after significant community input, the city adopted the Make Ogden plan. And so that's what I consider the envision stage. The next stage of our next milestone is that what I'm entitling alignment. So Ogden City and UTA established a long-term partnership for the future of Union Station. With the vision established and the regional partnership in place, the next step was preparing the project for redevelopment. So what I'm referring to is that building upon the Make Ogden plan, we were able to update the front runner station area plan for Union Station, and the UTA board actually adopted that in 2021. So that's a huge and important partnership that Ogden City has with UTA, and a shared vision for potentially what could be realized at Union Station. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. The next milestone was prepare. So preparing for redevelopment. In other words, what's transforming or what transformed the project from an idea into something that could actually be implemented. With the project prepared, the focus shifted from refining the vision with the community. So let's see what the community thinks about some of these high-level plans. And so we prepared for redevelopment. And so one of the outcomes of that in 2022 was the creation and the development of the campus, what we call the Campus Development Framework Plan. And so that was the Union Station Campus Master Plan. And so that kind of guided some of the next few conversations, and it included or it fed into the request for proposals. And so we published a request for proposal back in 2022 that basically said, hey, development community, let us know what you think about Union Station, the adjacent properties. What would you do with it? Are you willing to partner with the city? Are you willing to do some investments even before you have an agreement to be a developer? Do you want to play ball with the city on this huge project? And so we had responses to that RFP. And a professional planning team was assembled. And so that was 2022. We were starting to gather the interested parties that we could party with. Also, I want to mention one of the other key elements in 2022 was that we finally, after many years of back and forth, we started the purchase of the Union Station property, which sits under the Union Station building. We had owned the building previously, but not the property underneath it. And so Union Pacific owned that parcel. And so $4.2 million was the negotiated price. And over a 5-year term, I think we just last week made the fourth, payment on that. And so we almost have that paid for with annual payments. And so that was also a key to preparing for what we wanted to do and could do, and providing us the flexibility of actually owning the building and the property itself right under and around Union Station, the building itself. And so that was really key as well. So then moving on to the refine milestone, which I call the community guided visioning, if you will. And so over the course of 2023 through 2024 and 25, we held a series of community conversations with residents and stakeholders and partners, which helped shape every major refinement of what I would call the preferred plan. We got people's feedback on that. We tried it again. We got additional feedback, really a lot of good community engagement, which transformed our initial ideas from some city staff ideas to a preferred vision supported by the public. And so that's really key, the refined milestone. And then finally, the last milestone in my little milestone journey here is the preferred vision. And so in 2025 and 26, we presented several versions of the preferred concept for the Union Station campus or neighborhood. And once again, we asked for input. And we revised it again. And we finally finalized that in the spring, early 2026. And so the preferred vision became the foundation for developing the detailed Union Station neighborhood master plan. And so this was key. What you're seeing there in the photo is one of our enlarged Union Station master plan concepts out on the floor. And we, like I said, we rolled out several versions of this at several different occasions in order to talk to people about what they saw, what they liked, what they didn't like, ideas for making it even better. And so here's what we heard. So from the community input to the preferred vision, what did the community tell us? After years of planning and technical analysis and regional partnerships and community engagement events, we produced something incredibly valuable, not just a plan, but a shared vision. Before we look at the vision, it's important to understand that what the community told us all along the way was the preferred vision reflects the community's priorities, not just the city's ideas, but the community's priorities. And so here's what we heard. The priorities became the foundation for the preferred vision and the ultimate output. 6 priorities consistently emerged from the community conversations. Preserve Union Station, of course, that's a given, but not for everybody. So that's one of the core principles. Return passenger rail to Union Station, create a vibrant area for public gathering spaces, improve walkability, particularly the walk between Union Station campus and downtown Ogden, right? Across Wall Avenue. Huge part of our focus. Housing and jobs, taking advantage of some of the underutilized or vacant properties to the north and south of Union Station to create additional housing opportunities close to transit, as well as jobs on the campus. And then doing and elevating and focusing on our museums and the culture related to all that. And so these priorities became the foundation for everything moving forward. So here now's the what I would call the preferred vision. It really balances the community's priorities around the 3 core areas of historic preservation, regional connectivity, and economic development. As we listen to the community and refine the planning work, those are the 3 themes that emerged. Every design decision you'll see going forward over the next several slides supports one of these or more of these priorities. The preferred vision reflects the intersection of historic preservation, right there in the middle, of historic preservation, regional connectivity, and economic development. So every planning decision sought to balance historic preservation, regional connectivity, and economic development to create a single preferred vision. So if you visit Union Station campus 10 years from now, what will you experience? This is what we're aiming for. So the preferred vision, as I mentioned earlier, a walkable, mixed-use neighborhood centered around Union Station and regional transportation. As you look at I know this is a large area, so it's a little hard to see everything, but obviously Union Station is right here at the heart of it. We're proposing an expanded train display to the south of Union Station. The current display is about half that, a third of that, and so this is a significant increase. We're talking about enhanced museums at Union Station, updating the whole building and restoring it ultimately, as well as the Browning Theater. Bringing, earlier I talked about the importance of bringing the front runner train and maybe additional transit to Union Station again, the platform back to Union Station. In order for that to work, we've got to have convenient and close parking, right? And so you'll see in the plan transit parking here, as well as parking convenience there as well. And so those parking facilities could also serve as for museum visitors, as well as adjacent businesses, as well as, oh, sorry about that. As well as the other activities going on. And you'll see here, you can't probably read it, but hospitality. And so there's in the downtown Ogden market, we do have some hotels, but Visit Ogden would probably tell you that there is a market for additional hospitality. And some of that will satisfy at Wonder Block, but even more here at Union Station. So that would be here, according to the visioning, as well as parking associated with that to be able to support conventions and events in this area and at Union Station. So we're pretty excited about that. And then further to the north, at this point, we're looking at additional residential opportunities close to transit, but residential and surrounding green space in the middle, and additional opportunities for commercial and retail in this area. You can imagine perhaps a restaurant on the north end of or the south end of this facility here, facing the park with a patio that looks out over the green space that's there. A very nice amenity for sure. And so retail all surrounding all of the open space in the middle as well. And then up to the northwest, we see the extension of the regional trail down into the neighborhood, all along the western boundary there, with enhanced landscaping and trail access all the way up to the trailhead that continues farther north. So yet another public amenity for the Union Station neighborhood, connecting the expanded trails to the north and additional transit to Union Station, again, for pedestrians, bikes, and so forth. Also, just as a side note, I have this vision in my head, speaking of visioning, of being able to someday take the front runner train to Ogden Station, getting off the train, walking into the Grand Hall, the restored Grand Hall, and then deciding where I want to go. I can walk out the front doors. I can look up towards the Ogden Mountain, right down 25th Street, and decide to cross the improved pedestrian cross to 25th Street, or I could take a left. I could stay inside and walk through the building towards the north or along the exterior and be able to catch the new UTA bus queue up front, or on over to the parking structure to get into my car, or to push the elevator and go to the top floor and catch an advanced air mobility unit up to Snow Basin to watch some downhill activities there. All different types of modes of transportation, as well as the traditional ones. And so all of this will be convenient. OGX bus service will be wrapping around this now, and then queuing up in front of Union Station to be as convenient as possible. And then with the parking and everything, it really works out to be it fills the gap of the total intermodal hub for transportation for Northern Utah, I would say, not just even Ogden City. We've also had discussions with UTA about reaching out westward and northward from Ogden and bringing, instead of more highways that take people from West Weaver to Salt Lake City, let's bring them through Ogden, okay? And one of the keys for that is enhanced bus service and train service. That's a whole tangent that Taylor can probably speak to for much more informed way than me, but
David, can I ask you a question about how the residential will interact with all the activity that's going on there? Is it gonna be, who will own it? How will it serve, and how will it interact with the whole development?
Sure. One of the things that we're working on now with our developer teams is different ideas on how that concept will work. One possible situation is more like, it's weird, I'm seeing your picture up on the TV screen right behind you. But is a Business Depot Ogden model where the city continues to own the property, and a developer, private developer, invests in building the structures on those properties, residential, commercial, retail, office, and the city receives a portion of the lease and or the increased property values, right? Because they're private property, or they're being operated as private property. So that's one model, but there's other ideas on how that might happen. So
Yeah, it would just cause my
Yeah.
mind to think that through, and I thought,
and I'm going to show you some
Yeah.
pictures of what that might look like, at least from a conceptual rendering perspective.
David,
But-
before you leave that, I also have
Yeah.
a question. How does UTA play into all that? Because they're surrendering all their parking, and it appears that you have parking structures planned there. Are they on board with the plan? Are they?
Yeah, I mean, they participate in our biweekly project meetings where we're discussing all these details, but logistically, it's a challenge, right? And so this all has to be, and the reason we meet so often is because the whole need for coordination and phasing and when are certain development activities going to happen. But you're right, there'd be no point in moving the front runner platform to Union Station in a silo without moving the parking as well, the parking function. So that's not going to work. They're not going to turn that button until they are able to serve their customers as well as they serve them today, if not better, right? And so all of that is being phased out in our work plan, but it's a huge, complex process. But you're right. But UTA, in theory, is on board with as a partner in this whole project. They like the idea too, but we just got to work through all the logistics. They've got a business to run as well, and have to be able to satisfy their constituents. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, they're very much part of this, and actually, they're probably our first partner in this whole project before anybody else were even talking to us about this. This next slide, I just zoomed in a little bit. Just so you can see some of the detail of the central part with those elements I already spoke about. And I'll give you guys, you'll have access to all this, of course, as well, if you haven't already seen it. So now, if we imagine how this might look on the ground, walking around, it might look like something like this. As we arrive off of Wall Avenue, the Union Station Plaza is intended to serve as kind of a welcoming front porch to Ogden City, providing and our guests, providing flexible spaces to host events, serve as a canvas for public art, if you will, displays, serve as a welcoming transit-bound and welcoming transit-bound visitors, and an anchor and of historic 25th Street. So what you're seeing here is just, we've been talking about with UDOT doing additional improvements and traffic calming measures along Wall Avenue in front of Union Station, enhanced pedestrian crossings for safety, and that includes landscaping, trees, pushing the sidewalks back, and enhancing the overall plaza in front of Union Station. And so, yeah, and so that looks pretty awesome. I have this, I think I'm going to frame this picture and put it in my office. It's just it's very soothing, and I love the colors. But anyway.
so we're standing on Wall right now? looking-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it. So, okay. The next one falls into the explore category as we talk about introduce the Union Station Paseo. It provides a continuous pedestrian corridor within the Union Station cultural core connecting Union Station, the Browning Theater, future train hall, museum buildings, the Union Station Plaza, connecting all that together. This would just be a pedestrian area, no cars. This would be a car-free environment, pedestrian first connection, linking all those items with transit and the public spaces. Again, under Explore, 2 east-west mid-block pedestrian corridors would also provide a pedestrian or a car-free environment for pedestrians. And so those would just run the opposite direction. And so those are, well, you can see those on the overall master plan from above. All right, if you walked out the front door, as I mentioned earlier, from Union Station out to Wall Avenue, the perspective you're seeing there is looking north up Wall Avenue towards the viaduct and Ben Lomond to further north. And over to the left, about a half a block to a block down before the viaduct, you see a structure there. That's just, it hasn't been designed, of course. It's just a placeholder for what we expect would be a hospitality hotel structure with convention options as well, and parking behind it. And so it just kind of gives you a sense of the synergy that can be realized with the additional development to the north and south of Union Station, taking advantage of that area. And by the way, as I mentioned before, based upon the current working plans with UDOT, a proposed reconfiguration of Wall Avenue would reduce perhaps, and we're still working out the details, nothing's been committed to, but they're also a part of our project team for Union Station neighborhood. But we would reduce perhaps traffic lane widths, provide landscape median where turning movements aren't as necessary, and reallocate unused roadway shoulders to pedestrian realm, connecting downtown Union Station. So rebalancing Wall Avenue to create a safer, greener, and more walkable gateway. This is that rail side promenade that I mentioned earlier. So this will be in the northwest area of Union Station campus or neighborhood. And so this would connect with the trail that goes to the north. And so again, you see Ben Lomond to the north there, and Union Station is behind us, looking at this perspective here. What you're seeing in the distance is some of the commercial office and or residential buildings, which would ideally, instead of large parking lots around them, there would be tuck under parking to make better use of all the space. So, so the rail side promenade would extend from the front runner connection and to the trail, and connecting the neighborhoods and so on. So we're excited about that. That's a pretty cool feature as well. So more in the live and work category, kind of located between 22nd and 23rd Streets and running north and south is the shared, what we call Main Street, or the Union Station neighborhood. And so you're looking at the northern view in this particular case as well. This would be a shared corridor between vehicles, probably just going through to get to either retail and or residential parking in the adjacent area. So slow, but being able to access that as a road and pedestrians being close by as well. So connecting all of the outdoor spaces together using elevated paving materials and activation on the ground floor to call out those areas and increase the character of the area. All right, so those are just some of the renderings or the slides from some of the visioning that was done and was shown to our residents. Some of these were shown as early as January at some of our public engagement meetings. All right, so the next step from vision to the plan. So developing the detailed master plan that will guide future implementation. As we know, creating the vision is just one step, delivering it requires planning, partnerships, funding, and sustained investment. So these next few slides just kind of detail it. Some of the things that we're currently working on. The master planning process has progressed, but I just want to show you, if you look at this chart across the top here, way back here, we have the Make Ogden plan completed, preferred neighborhood vision completed. We're now in the master planning currently, which means the real details, right? And so it's one thing to have a high level concepts and vision. It's now time to put all the work behind what this really looks like, the logistics of how everything works. Later, we'll move to implementation and project delivery further out. But all of these activities, I don't want to go through all this with you guys. You're welcome. So, but I just put it up here to show you the complexity of all the things that are currently being worked on, from land use planning, including environmental remediation activities, transportation planning, including the items we talked about earlier with coordination with UTA, museum planning. We recently finished the Museum 2.0 pre-design work, and working with some of the top museum consultants in the country to help us create the vision just for the museums and what that might look like to bring them up to the next level, and how that supports the overall neighborhood master plan. But huge progress in relative to the museum. Economic impact study. What is this going to do economically to our community? What will the property values look like? What will be the impact of the increased residents, the jobs, and so on? But evaluating those physical impacts, developing the revenue projections that will support our HTRZ, or our Housing Transit Reinvestment Zone application with the state, to allow us to capture the increment from this major increase in value to put back into the infrastructure. So it's not falling on the Ogden City taxpayers. It'll be based upon incremental value that will drive that. So that'll be a huge opportunity for us. And then as part of that too will be our overall funding strategy, and making sure that there's financial feasibility in everything we're doing. And then the implementation tool, including negotiating the master development partnership agreement with who's going to do what, who's going to own what, where's the money coming from, what is the private investment, what is the public investment in the infrastructure, and so on. All that will be defined in the future. We're working on all these items now for the current master planning, and that's why this is one of the last things, because a lot of this has to still be defined. So I guess I led right into the next slide here, building partnerships for delivery. There's no way that Ogden City could do this by ourselves. We have to partner. And so we've already mentioned several times different partners, but it's going to take a lot of community and private partnerships to make this happen. So the city, UTA, and development partners have continued to work together over the last couple of years under what we call an exclusive negotiation agreement. And so that's in place right now while we work on all the master plans, and which will ultimately lead toward a future master development partnership agreement. And so that's the acronym for that, but master development partnership agreement. That's where all of the issues, Rich, that you brought up regarding ownership and leases and all that, that's where all that will be defined. Who's going to do what. But you can see the spoke here of all the different entities that need to be involved. The residents, of course, property owners, downtown businesses, UDOT, UTA, state government for regional planning and funding collaboration. And by the way, in case I forget to bring it up later, we are asking for support from the state. You know, we were in January, we were at the state capitol, and I'll give you guys these flyers we handed out before I leave, or you can pass them out now if you'd like, but just to kind of give you an idea of the way we're approaching it with the state. This is, by the way, the State Railroad Museum. And so it needs to be funded and treated accordingly. So that's the basic thing. One of the basic things we're asking for from the state is we have this museum, it's the state's museum, it operates that way. We need some support, both on the building itself and otherwise. And so that's huge. Union Pacific, museums and cultural organizations, and then the Union Station Foundation. They have a huge role in helping us with the stewardship, advocacy, and fundraising support for the museums at Union Station. So we're excited about all these partners that are part of our project team. All right, so I mentioned a moment ago the exclusive negotiation agreement. I want to give you an idea, I wanted to just show you this to give you an idea of the things that that group is currently working on. And so the pre-development activities for Union Station this is just some of them, right? So the ALTA survey, the geotechnical support, parking study, cost benefit analysis, market study, the plans, environmental study. Ogden City RDA is taking on those last three and have been. The developers and our other partners are sharing in the cost of some of these other activities, all even before we actually get to the development agreement. And so these are critical investments in helping make sure that what our plan is feasible and is reasonable. And so these aren't city-only investments, they're shared pre-development investments between public and private partners. On the agenda, I think tonight was a discussion about, or an agenda item that I think it was labeled Union Station pre-development cost share agreement. And so after talking with Glenn and legal, it was determined that's really just an administrative item. We were just extending the term of the ENA. And so it really it wasn't required that it be a council agenda item per se going forward. So that's just a housekeeping thing that we're taking care of. So, so we won't be talking about that specifically. All right, so moving on, funding the vision. This is huge, not only for Union Station and for the whole campus. It's going to take a lot of different sources. And so I just threw some of these up here, the things that we're looking at right now, everything from private investment, federal grants, state support, RDA and HTRZ. Again, the HTRZ, or the Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone tool, will be huge for us in order to capture all of these increased values going forward to support some of the development. Philanthropic contributions to help restore Union Station and enhance the museums at Union Station via the Union Station Foundation, and then city capital investment, particularly like when we have grant match opportunities and so forth, that will be important as well. So no single source will deliver this vision. It will require coordinated public and private investment over time. And then I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this was just a slide just to remind me to explain how HDRZ works. But just think about our RDA community redevelopment areas, very similar in terms of how it functions. It's just operated by the state instead and governed by the state rules more specifically than our CRAs. Those are governed by our rules and with a little bit of focus from the state. And so there's an advantage to it in that the way the funding works. And so that's the reason we'll be pursuing an HTRZ plan for approval from the state. And but it'll help us reinvest into the future growth of that area. The expected economic and community benefits, one of the due diligence items that we're working on is the market study and the economic impact studies. These are some of the early numbers based upon the square footage of some of the development that's being proposed, residential, commercial, retail, office, as well as the improvements to the area, just a high level expected economic and community benefit. And so you can see the numbers are somewhat impressive, I would say. And again, this speaks to the whole discussion about this being one of our biggest redevelopment opportunities in the history of the city. Investing in the plan, earlier we talked about the pre-development items that are are happening now, but I just wanted to show you the categories of some of the foundation for all the things that have to be done to build the ultimate master plan that we're working on currently. Property acquisition, some of which is going on now, and has happened already. Obviously, we still have a couple parcels that we have to require planning and engineering, public engagement, transportation planning, and museum planning, economic analysis. So these are the types of investments in this ENA pre-development stage. This is a little bit of an eye chart, and so road to implementation. The reason I just wanted to show you guys this was just to help you understand we're operating on a lot of different tracks, all operating at the same time in parallel to advance the pre-development and move towards the master development agreement, and in order to deliver the Union Station neighborhood. And so in the neighborhood track, as we mentioned earlier, preferred vision, check, master plan, current, and all of those elements. Back to public review, planning commission, city council, plan adoption, negotiate and execute a master development partnership agreement, start working on the infrastructure, all the stuff underground and above, and then private development, private investment, and neighborhood build out. On the museums track, we are, as I mentioned, the museum pre-design, check, that's complete. We have some awesome creative ideas for how to take our current assets at Union Station and take them to the next level. And so more discussion is coming soon to you guys about that. Fundraising and partnership to help us to make all that happen. The actual architectural and exhibit design, construction, and then opening. Transit track, master planning, check. Engineering, UDOT's working on some of those elements right now. What is possible? What are the obstacles? Funding, construction, and passenger rail returns to Ogden Union Station. So these three tracks are all interdependent and coordinated with ongoing community engagement at every step. So it's a little overwhelming, but kind of cool. So here's the I think
David, can I ask a question real quick
Yeah.
about that? Just on that last slide, there's a lot going on to get to that, to those final goals. Are there timelines or goals that we have to reach those as they go on? What's our timeline there?
So actually, I have a slide about that. Maybe I took it out. But anyway, where we're at today is I would expect that we will be actively engaged in the master planning process over the next year. So 26, 27, maybe into 28, okay? And so that's just, we're still in the planning and public engagement process. I would guess that we'll probably have some more specific actions and requests for adoption from the city council and the RDA sometime in the next within the next 2 years. And so if I just threw that out there, it would sound like, man, what are you guys doing? But that's why I showed you all those other interim steps, because there's a lot going on in order to make this happen. And some of it moves really fast, and then other things like working with the state on the State Department of Environmental Quality, unbelievable. And so just in terms of their carefulness and their deliberateness in terms of how things are documented and done. So it's going to be worth it, but it's slow. And so those are some of the elements we're working on. Does that give you an idea? Yeah. So I would perhaps, there's some things that we talked about. If we can get through the master development or the master planning stage, and we can get approved agreements with our development team, there perhaps we could end up being able to, for example, the south end of the campus is pretty much almost ready to roll with buildable property. And so not a lot needs to be done there. And then, or maybe up on the very north end, some residential units could start happening. Okay. And so, but in the middle of all that, really for this to work, we got to do the heavy lifting, the front runner, the parking. Those things are not as fun to look at in terms of the infrastructure, but they have to happen. So it's overwhelming, but we're committed to it. So So the outcomes. So this is what success looks like if we do this right. You see, guys have seen this theme several times. The three columns of focus: historic preservation, regional connectivity. And by the way, you guys, it's downtown Ogden. There's no reason why it's downtown Ogden. It's downtown Northern Utah if we do this right, particularly with the transportation issues. And so there's no reason why that can't be the case. And we're the default downtown for everybody, the go-to. And so, so I just want to emphasize that, and I really like my own headline here, building Ogden's next great neighborhood. You know, preserving our past, connecting our future, creating lasting opportunity. This is what success looks like, I think, for Ogden City and Union Station. The project has never really been about just restoring a historic building. It's also about preserving one of Ogden's greatest assets, while at the same time creating a neighborhood that will serve our community for generations. And so if we do it right, that will be the case. We'll look back at this and go, man, people will look back and say, I can't believe Ogden City pulled that off. And so there'll be rewards that come from that for generations. So after years of planning and partnership and community engagement, we believe the foundation has been put in place through all of the last 5 or 6, 7 years, that we can move confidently from the vision to project delivery. We appreciate the council's continued support, and that's why we were so excited when we're like, yeah, we will do a Union Station update. It's been a minute, and so we need to do that. We need to make sure that the council is on board with all of our activities, and to the extent we can provide even more information, get into financial projections, show you what the market studies look like. We're excited to do that as well. Those would be separate discussions in and of themselves, but it's pretty cool, some of the things we're doing right now. So we appreciate all of you, and if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. But if you'd like to go to the website dedicated to this, that's unionstation-ogden.com, or you can scan that QR code and go right to that website and drill down, and you can see some of the history of what we've been doing and some of the projections going forward. So any questions or comments at this point?
Anything for David? Yeah, I appreciate you, and this has been a good presentation. And thank you and Taylor for before you got here. So
yeah,
thank you.
Nope,
I have a couple questions. We're in that exclusive negotiation agreement currently. Could you explain a little bit about, it says here it's the city, UTA, and developmental partners, a little bit about how that works, who the developmental partners are, and how that was entered into during that time?
Sure. We had the request for proposals, and if you like, I'd be happy to, we could share that with the council, because it's been like 4 years ago when that was published, right? And that way you'd be able to see the scope of what the plan was for them to, anybody that was interested in being in this partnership, if you will. Somewhat loose, I would say, but they're kind of doing it on a little bit of a speculative way, because there's no guarantees yet until we have the master agreement, right? And so, but we appreciate that. And so in the original ENA, that included, and there was like a press release that went out defining what all this meant, and it's on our website too, but it included UTA, of course, Design Workshop, Mortensen, J. Fisher Companies, and McQuinney. McQuinney about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, they pulled out of that agreement because they pulled out of a lot of their projects, endeavors across the country. And so they just changed directions. And so I'm not sure what the status of that is, but they're listed on the original partnership agreement, if you will, or project team, but they're no longer part of that team. And so that's, those are the individuals that we've we have our meetings with pretty much, twice a month, if not more, as needed. The most recent meeting, one of the primary topics was meeting with our environmental consultant that had been doing some testing and reviewing the previous reports on the soil conditions at different parts of the Union Station neighborhood. So that pretty much took the whole meeting. And so what are the next action steps? We've also had meetings with the State Department of Environmental Quality. We've had meetings regarding the engineering or logistics, talking to UTA's engineer about how easy or hard it's going to be to move the front runner platform back to Union Station, and what can be done to mitigate those challenges. And so handicapped accessibility, I mean, we're really just trying to check all the boxes. There's a huge laundry list. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's almost like a due diligence pre-development committee, if you will. But yeah. And some of these individuals, the reason they're valuable is because they have experience in building stuff and developing things. So, and running things like transit. So, okay.
I guess this, I don't know if this is a question for Glenn or for you, but the original transmittal, it seemed like there was some council action that was supposed to be taken, the approval of a cost sharing agreement. Can you tell us how that changed or what's happening there?
I'm happy to take that. Yeah. So we did get the transmittal, and as we looked at it, nothing like this really had come before the council or the RDA board in the past. And so we had some questions about the appropriateness of the board getting involved and approving something like that, where it wasn't allocating any new funding. It wasn't, approving any sort of new agreement. It was just sort of memorializing what had already been agreed to. And so we had some questions about that, and we had talked to legal and we talked to CED, and as David had mentioned, ultimately it came down to this really should be something that the executive director or the mayor should be doing, because it really is not an RDA board action. And so sort of in putting it on the agenda, we wanted to keep that going because we had gotten the transmittal a little while ago. So we kind of had it for a month or so. And we wanted to provide some context for the agreement. And so that's why we got the update that we got. So with the changes to the agreement where it's no longer RDA board action, it would just be an information item. So you won't see that agreement on your agenda at all. So we'll pull that back and change that. But that's kind of how that went. We got it. We had some questions on it, and through our discussions and investigations, it was determined that that really should be something that the RDA executive director should sign rather than the board.
That's kind of our default process in the last couple of years, is probably to overshare, but yeah. And everybody's welcome to see that agreement too. That's not a big deal. Okay.
Oversharing is good. That's good.
Just tell us when too much.
I have a question. This is I'm looking at I've been looking at the Union Station neighborhood website, and it lists 4 partners, let's say J. Fisher Design Workshop, UTA, and then Make Ogden, which is the city, I'm assuming. But looking at the paper that you just passed out, it includes Mortensen, and then the 47G.
47G, yep.
47G.
Yep.
And this might have been in another document that I just haven't skimmed through yet. But in pulling up their website, especially Mortensen's website, the first couple things that they have on their page is data centers. And so, energy banks, and I'm curious as to what they would be providing to restoring our Union Station or adding to the Union Station neighborhood.
Well, I think Mortensen and Jared and Taylor can probably speak to this better, but my understanding is they are a successful construction company. And so, for example, when we were looking for input on the laundry building, we asked Mortensen to give us an idea of the scope, the financial scope of what that might look like. So one of their professionals looked at the building and said, this is going to be expensive. It's probably in the realm of about this much money to restore that building. no judgment on what should be done, but that's the kind of value they bring to the table. When we were talking with the museum consultants a few months ago about the updating the museums at Union Station, the name Mortensen came up, and some of the consultants had had some positive experiences with Mortensen in terms of new museum development in other parts of the country. And so I think that's their main qualification, or what they bring to the table is they have experience and they're successful at building stuff. And so I wasn't aware of the data center connection. I'm not sure how involved they are in that or what that looks like, but yeah, I'm sure.
Speaking
they're
of
not the only one.
construction, it looks like they built it, so
Okay.
I think they're fairly involved.
Okay.
My next question is regarding the, and correct me if I'm saying it wrong, the 47G, the
Yes.
Utah Aerospace and Defense.
Yes. Yeah, so they're kind of an informal collaborator with Ogden City in general. And I think, you know, at the time this promotional flyer was created at the beginning of the year, there was, we were in discussions with them about ways to enhance the transportation at Union Station. They'd been involved in some of our project meetings relative to advanced air mobility for Ogden Airport, and also, and maybe downtown. So like I said, on the top of the parking structure. And so I think that was, the designer thought that would be kind of cool to throw them on there, but they're not officially part of the ENA or the project team. They're an agency that operates, and we are, Ogden City is a supporter of 47G, but our Economic Development Division. So, and we're engaged with them on a continual basis.
Okay, and I was just quickly looking up their board of directors, and it looks like Senator Ann Milner is on their board of directors, former president of Weber State University, Brad Mortensen. So I was just curious to do some quick research on these new to me potential partners or committee, as you put it, for the Union Station neighborhood.
Okay, all right, yeah. I think it's just overall Ogden City and just being engaged with groups and organizations that can help us in terms of economic development activities. And so aerospace and defense is a big opportunity for Ogden City. They have a huge impact on our community. And so 47G leads out on a lot of the initiatives to bring additional aerospace companies to Ogden and the state. So they work with cities across the state. So, and so it's good. I think it's a good thing to have a good relationship with them.
Thank you. But are they on the committee for the Union Station neighborhood, as you put it, at the beginning of just talking about?
Not formally, no.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few more questions unless anyone else wants to break up my questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
We do have another meeting, you know, we have some more stuff to go through, so.
Okay.
Just keep that in mind.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chair. My question is, I was looking over the agenda for the Planning Commission tomorrow night, and it looks like there's going to be a vote for, sorry, I have too many things open. There's a public hearing, excuse me, for the adoption of the general plan and zone amendments associated with future land use map. And it just got me thinking to what is the areas that you've shown on your slides for the Union Station neighborhood? How are they currently zoned? And then is there a potential rezone or updated zones for those areas?
I can't speak to that off the top of my head. I'd have to pull up the zoning map and look at it, but.
I have it right here if you'd like.
Okay, Jared, do you want to speak to that zoning for campus? Yeah. He's gonna
Okay.
look it up.
Thank you. My curiosity is, well, not my curiosity, in speaking with people that have been attending a lot of these workshops and following along on the progression of this immense lift.
Yes.
There
historic
has,
designation.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's been a want specifically from the Union Station group to extend the historic designation down to the Union Station. And the reason why I'm asking about the zoning is if there's been a consideration or if it's in that updated zoning, that it would be, let me get through my notes, that it would extend to let's see, it's currently H25, I think, on 25th Street.
Right.
And if that would extend to the Union Station campus.
Okay. Taylor?
Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. When looking at the H25 zoning, that allows us to put buildings right in front of the Union Station. And we didn't want to do that. And so what we're looking at as part of the zoning as we're getting into all of the items that were specific to the campus itself was part of that development agreement that we'd be bringing back to council. So my anticipation, it was to be something with an overlay zone in which we'd be talking about building heights, exteriors of the building, amongst other items that would go into place. So the fear of, like I said, we could extend the H25 zoning and then we can build a whole bunch of buildings in front of the Union Station itself. I would prefer we not do that. So that's what we're trying to do, is avoid that and ensure if we do an overlay zone, we can meet the intent of everything else we need to do for preserving the station, preserving the look around the station. And we do that through, it's the design guidelines that David had mentioned before as part of the presentation. We do that through the overlay zoning and part of those questions, and of which all of those will come back to Planning Commission for approval. We'll have to go to landmarks for approval. So we have a whole bunch of public processes that we still need to go through on those items prior to any of these items happening. But I want to emphasize that the most important part of this project to us is the preservation and the look of the Union Station itself. So I don't want to do anything that we have that would take away from that building, from its look. We've even had conversations of how, you know, we don't want modern looking buildings down on the neighborhood, but that's when we start putting those into the sort of neighborhood design guidelines. And so those are all still processes that are to be coming. And so we haven't even started those conversations, I guess is the right way to put it. We're trying to finish up what we wanted for the visioning. We haven't even identified the exact location of where we want like right of way and streets and utilities and things of that nature. But following that would be zoning and some of these other conversations. But that would still come all the way back to a public forum in which we would have these very same conversations again in the future.
Okay. Everybody good? All right. Thanks, Taylor. Thanks, Dave.
Yep. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the proposed fiscal year 2026, 2027. Did you want to talk about this at all? Anything going forward on this?
On the Union Station?
On the Union Station thing, yeah.
No, I think I've covered everything I need to cover. Maybe I'll just add a little bit on the zoning. So it's CMU. It's a commercial mixed use zone. That was part of the changes from 2023. And we did have those conversations in 2023 about extending the H25 zone. And as Taylor mentioned, there are some design requirements in the H25 that made it kind of problematic to extend it down, but we did have those conversations at the time as well.
Okay. Next item is proposed fiscal year 2026, 2027 budget amendment for future park property reserve. Justin, how are you, Justin? Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Glad to be here. Going to invite some help up today to talk about this item, inviting Jeremy Smith from Neighborhood Development to come up as well. And then we have Monty Stewart from Parks that will come up and also have some discussion about this budget opening. So as far as the budget opening portion of it, so I'll go through that and then we'll talk about one of the opportunities that we're looking at right now, which has already been discussed that you are aware of. But I'll talk about the number side of things. So just a little history about this, that's kind of small. I guess I should have made it a little bigger, but so this Parkland Reserve account that we have, the City Council first appropriated funds back in 2023, and these were out of the general fund balance. And the initial purpose of this was to be able to have some funds set aside so that if opportunities arose, the administration had the opportunity to purchase land to preserve any open space for parks. And so in fiscal year 23, that $3 million was appropriated. That first year, $955,000 was spent to purchase the property at 625 Grant. This was a school district property that was surplus. In fiscal year 2024, $300,000 was spent to purchase a property at 497 Grant Avenue. In fiscal year 25, a little over 400,000 was spent to purchase a property at 253 4th Street. And then in fiscal year 26, another 600,000 was used to purchase a property at 600 South Lincoln. So those three properties are all around the 4th Street area. And as they're working with the ballpark and the things that were going on there, so to be able to preserve some of that space. And then there's been just under $10,000 spent so far related to the Taylor Canyon property. This was for earnest money and for a survey that was done. So this gives us a balance at this time of just under 700,000 available. As part of the fiscal year 27 budget, as we went through the process for adopting the budget for this year, administration had proposed adding an additional 700,000 to this account. When we went through the final adoption of the budget in the Schedule A1, that funding was pulled out of this account and set into a council account for future appropriation in the CIP fund. And so before your consideration tonight, or not for your consideration and in discussion tonight, is to move that money out of that allocated for future projects account in the council account in our general ledger and moving it to this future park property reserve account. So the net effect in this budget opening is zero. That's not an increase or decrease. It's just moving it. And the reason we have to do this is because it's moving between departments. And so that's what requires us to come back and have this proposal. This 700,000, the funding for this came from BDO lease revenue as well as some prior year general fund funds that were transferred into the CIP fund that were held for a future appropriation, which was what was part of the 27 budget. So that is the budget opening side of this. I will turn it over to Jeremy to talk a little about one of the opportunities right now that it's being considered, which is Taylor Canyon.
Okay, so it's going to give you, I pushed it twice. We're on now? Okay. It's going to give you an update. You've seen this before, but we've had some recent revisions. We had a survey done on this property. And so some of the acreage has changed a little bit. And you can see that in this exhibit. So the property to the east is the parcel A that you're seeing there. It's 1.19 acres is what that landed at. And if you're familiar with the site, that would take everything from the east property line all the way down to the sidewalk that just kind of bisects right before the school property transition as far as where the school was. So this is all the park and the playground area would be purchased by the city. That's based on our agreed price with our real estate purchase contract of $8.42 a square foot, would land you squarely at $700,000 for that property. And then that closing would take place as soon as the funding's approved. And also the subdivision is approved. So it's gone through the submittal process and recorded into two separate lots that the city can then buy the parcel A. So that's the latest and greatest as far as the acquisition of the property goes. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that. But if you have questions on the park side of it, Monty's here to talk about that. So any questions on this section?
Yeah, I do. I'm just kind of trying to understand here. So we have this money set aside in this park land reserve history. Is that, or no, this is the history, but we have it set aside in this fund that's designed to purchase park space, not for ongoing maintenance, that was used to purchase, there were $3 million in there, was used to purchase these properties around 4th Street. So tell me, explain to me one more time, why we have to move that money in order to purchase this park.
So at this time, we don't have enough. So there's just under 700,000. So there wouldn't be the full amount available to purchase the property as is with the change. The original scope of the property was closer to $1 million, but with some of the changes, as Jeremy talked about, it came in at 700,000. So we're right at that amount, but with the discussion we had in June about this property and with council's desire for us to come back and have more conversation about it, we were proposing to add an additional 700,000 in this account so that there's additional funds set aside available for if any other opportunities arise. It just happens that these are both coinciding at the same time with looking at this property and also trying to increase the funding in this property property reserve account. So again, yeah, this account is held just to be able to purchase property. It's not to do any improvements to the property. It's not for any ongoing maintenance. It's only to be able to purchase any land that would preserve any of that open space. And so in order to purchase the property, we do need to add more funding into this account to be able to meet the amount that is requested to purchase for this purchase price.
Because we're about $7,500 short
Correct.
in the account.
Correct.
The idea is also those other opportunities present, not
Mhm.
necessarily here, but other places in the city where we're looking at parks and things and expanding that those funds are available to do that. And those are some examples Justin gave before when they're trying to improve the 4th Street ballpark. We had some opportunities to acquire property that would help make that a way better park. And so where we don't always know what's coming down the pipe, it's nice to be able to act on that when it's available.
So this 700,000 we're appropriating is in addition to the 600 and, or the 692,000 that is already there. We're adding an
Correct.
additional
Correct.
700,000 into that.
Yes.
Okay, I think I understand that. Can you just, I guess, this presentation, we've had prior ones and then the park space keeps kind of shrinking. Tell us kind of the thought process behind now. Looks like instead of 2/3, it's 1/3 that we're purchasing there.
Yeah, so if you were to compare this to the last time we talked about this, it's not a lot different. It is a little less. When we got it surveyed, we realized that the right of way on that was actually it was pushed into the property a lot more than we were planning on it when we were measuring it out. So the survey showed this line actually, we were able to still push that down to the park, the usable park area, which is just where that sidewalk is. Anything beyond that was kind of a bonus. We thought that maybe that's a good buffer. But being able to do it here still allows you to preserve the park area, the historic park area, but to do it for a value that still allows you to purchase other park opportunities in the future. So the idea is was you're still able to get the same park basically that we were planning on, but do it in a way where there's still enough funds to do other projects in the future, purchase other properties. So that's a history. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, I think so. So we're awfully close that administration could just purchase this particular piece of property with the funds that are there, or we could just allocate an additional $8,000 and they could purchase that. And then we could, save this in this allocated fund and for a specific park purchase that was allocated for us. Like, is that something that we could do? I'm kind of thinking out loud here. Did that make any sense? So I'm saying we've got the Taylor Canyon property, and it says $700,000 worth is the purchase price. The administration already has $692,000 allocated for park purchase. I guess I'm asking why are we putting the whole bag in now? The additional 700,000 when we don't necessarily know what it's for.
So if council elected to change the amount, they're welcome to. You have that purview to adjust that and keep any funds in that account if you desire. What that does is it requires us to have to come back to do an additional budget opening to move the funds in the future if there is another opportunity in causing a delay in an opportunity. So in the last couple of years, those properties were purchased around 4th Street. Those were homes that had gone up for sale, and with that whole development and what they were doing with 4th Street, it would have just caused a delay in us the opportunity to be able to purchase those when they became available.
And risking missing the timeline to get it.
Yeah, some of these have been a little different because they've been school surpluses, and that process is different. But when it's a homeowner selling a property that may provide adjacent property with like 4th Street, it could delay those opportunities.
So what you're proposing is that this moving of the money, it still is earmarked for park use.
Park property
Park
purchases.
acquisition,
Yes.
So, which is kind of what
we
we had talked about when we put this in, when we did the budget, we put this in this holding account for that purpose, and we were gonna have this discussion about this time anyway, right? Is that, so, and so we're having that discussion for that purpose. Things have moved a little bit since that time, but I think the idea that we're talking about during the budget process is still all in place.
Yeah, I guess my concern is it gives us an additional checkpoint here. You know, I think $400,000 to purchase a home lets us actually quite a small little space there. I understand it's a bigger vision for 4th Street or, but you know, that's a pretty small purchase for park space when we've let other park space go and that was much more affordable. I just think we're losing an opportunity for another checkpoint in the process if we allocate this money to just say you can do what you want with it. This is a concern of mine, where we would have had a checkpoint to say, yeah, all right, you know, let's purchase that house that's next to 4th Street. Just a thought.
Anything else?
One other question.
I was, sorry, go ahead.
Is there other balance besides this 700,000 in that allocation for future projects for the city council? Besides that, I mean, that's not, is that the, I don't know what the balance is currently.
So we're sitting at 692,000 is how much is left from the original appropriation that city council did in fiscal year 2023.
Yeah, that's not my point. My point is the money that you're taking out is that city council fund that
Oh, that where we're moving it from?
correct.
That's the balance that's sitting in there right now. So there hasn't been any, so at times in the past when we did this during, I can't remember which fiscal year, where we had put some funds into an allocated for future projects account within the city council line item. And then we came back and appropriated it. So at times we have held funds aside through city council's proposal or what they would like to do. And then we've come back at a later time and proposed the use of those funds. So this would use what was set aside in that account to put it back into what was originally proposed.
Thank you.
Just comment on that. I appreciate Councilmember Lindell's point about the additional checkpoint. I think that's definitely valid and having some say in some of those things. But I also think there are opportunities that it might be good to have, and we're talking 700,000, we're not talking millions, where the mayor is able to, or the administration is able to make a decision on that. But I love the 4th Street ballpark concept and the idea that you know, we've been able to, you know, grab a few pieces here to improve what that is. I mean, I think that's the spirit of those funds, is to have it available to increase our parks. And so yeah, so I personally, I don't see an issue in having, you know, having some balance in there so that if an opportunity jumps up, then we're ready to take advantage of it. So
Additionally, I think that the history that you've just shown us merits our confidence that, you know, we have in you for whatever those purchases have been in the past. I don't think they've been frivolous. They've been to build our infrastructure with parks.
We've had a lot of discussions about 4th Street Park particularly. I mean, so it's not like we're changing any vision with 4th Street Park. It's just furthering the vision that we've already developed. So, yeah, I second what Ken said.
Are there any specific land purchases that are being considered with that money currently?
I mean, we have opportunities that all revolve around that 4th Street Park still, but it's too early for me to tell you where they would be at this point. But we're actively looking at that area and trying to develop that plan to the concept that was proposed.
Okay.
And
Anything else?
Monty is here. I know that there was some discussions about around parks and the cost of running parks. And so he was prepared some information for council around that too.
Good evening. Yeah, so I was asked to look at, I know Councilwoman Lopez had asked, what does it cost to maintain a park? And that's it's not there's a lot of variables, right? What it costs to maintain one space as opposed to another really depends on just a lot of different factors and what the amenities are and what the level of service that is expected at that particular place. So we've put together for this piece of 1.91 acres and some general cost for maintenance. And what we did was we looked at other parks and our through our work management system, like looked at another park and looked at, okay, what are we spending to mow, edge and trim there? What is our chemical cost? What is our water cost? And so that's what these are based off of. And I was asked to really look at, okay, what's the basic cost that we could get to for this particular property. So, and then we do have some other items in there that if it were to become more of a practice space, even though it's quite small, that there's some additional things that we would need to do there. So that's if you look down through there, this is the basic cost. We also provided upon purchase, there is a lot of unknowns, particularly with the irrigation system where it was part of a larger school property. We've poked around a little bit and looked at and found some galvanized lines and some PVC. And so we really don't know what's in the ground, right? And so there's some estimates that we would need to make some upgrades for certain for the irrigation system to have this park quickly usable. And then some other minor stuff like there is currently an asphalt pad with some basketball courts on it. There's some basic seal coating and crack sealing that would need to be done. And then some overseeding and top dressing of the current grass that's there. It's there's quite, I don't know if anybody's walked around it. I'm sure some of you have, but there's some needs there. So, and then some minor sidewalk repairs there at the west side. At the north end, there's a small set of stairs and some broken concrete and things. So that's really like kind of the basic things that we would need to do right away to have the park be usable. And then on the next page, this is really looking at additional amenities, some of the amenities that we have at other parks, and just kind of put in some pricing just so you guys kind of know what those things basically run. With some benches and picnic tables. We do the weather track controller is something that we are trying to, each time we upgrade irrigation system in our parks, it's a smart system that helps us conserve water. And so, but that just so you're not confused, totally putting a new irrigation system in, that's what's made up on that next one. So I'm probably not making much sense right now, but minor grading, we've got playground replacement. The playground that is there is functioning. The surfacing is it has some issues with the surfacing. So we did put in here just for the future, so you would know that when we get to the point where the playground would need to be replaced, that's a basic cost for a playground that size. And then I know there's no restroom there, but a small restroom, that's a sewer, water, electrical, and a restroom similar to what you've seen at some of our other parks, but a small one, and then pavilion. And I know there's no plans for that right now. I'm just kind of giving you the information that that's kind of the basic costs of some of those things. So. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Or any improvement is not working? Thank you. When you mention is no date for improvement, you don't have even date or estimate date for the requirements like a irrigation system, which are the priority? Or no, it's just estimate but no dates for start working on this?
Yeah, no, these are just basic estimates. Like if
Okay.
the property were to be purchased and we would want this to be a usable space, we would have to do some major upgrades to the irrigation system and basically divide it. We would really need to dig into it.
Okay.
And then that first page was just the basic cost of what well, the first page is basic cost of what it would cost to maintain a similar park with similar amenities in it. And then the next page was, yeah, oh, that did include the irrigation upgrade. So on the next page.
For the second question, I'm sorry, for the requirements and improvements, again, for the irrigation system, that cost is for this year or is doesn't matter? Because if you plan to install it next year, everything is up. So, or is some March there?
Yeah, so if I understand you right, so we had like some contingency. So this would be based on like an average yearly cost to maintain a park of that size.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for our team? Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on our agenda is proposed resolution adopting the fair and transparent methods to fill a midterm council vacancy. This is only 20 years late and
Right.
so Glenn, go ahead.
Sure. So
Consider this a good time to grab your food because Glenn's talking.
yeah, I was going to mention that. So just to follow up on the last item. So based on your schedule right now, the next available meeting would be August 4th. So that's when the budget amendment would be put on for your consideration. So once again, I'm going to change positions by just a couple of feet. And for a position that isn't supposed to present a lot, I sure feel like I've been presenting a lot lately. So hopefully not too many more. But yeah, this is a resolution that is required by state code to deal with one particular step in the process. So I'll go through all of that. And you can ask me any questions if I don't address anything. So just to start off with the timeline, as you all know, so we received a letter of resignation from Councilmember Myers on July 1st. That starts a 30-day clock for us for a replacement. So the application period opened for those interested in applying for the vacant position started on July 6th. July 14th today would be where you would consider the resolution. July 15th, so tomorrow at 5 o'clock, the application period closes. We're anticipating doing the council interviews next Tuesday. And then, of course, on the 31st, that's when the vacancy becomes effective, and then the newly appointed council member would take office the next day. So as I mentioned, this is required by state code. So this is a requirement that didn't exist in 2006. And so as we've gone through this process, we're trying to update that and get all the pieces that we need based on state code, put our rules and norms in where we can, but a lot of these are dictated by state code. So this one in particular requires the council to adopt an ordinance or a resolution before the meeting where the interviews take place to deal with some specific circumstance. So we're required to identify a fair and transparent method that the municipality will use in the event that there's a tie between 3 or more candidates or where one candidate receives the most votes but not the majority and 2 or more candidates tie for receiving the second most votes. And so this would be the result of that initial vote that's taken after the interview. So if there's not a majority, if somebody does not get a majority, then we move to this step, and this is where we need this resolution to explain how we deal with that. So when we get to next Tuesday, this is kind of the overall sort of general steps for that. So you'll interview all the qualified candidates. You'll do that initial vote that I mentioned. And then this step 3, that's where this resolution comes in. So we need a way to eliminate by lot, and it specifically says in state code by lot. And so you'll see that in the resolution. A way to determine the top two finalists where we can move to step 4 then. So we'll move to step 4 if we're required to go through that. You would have a vote between the top 2 candidates, and then if neither one of those gets a majority vote, then we go to a coin toss. And again, I like to keep saying this is based on state codes. We're not making this stuff up, so we're not, I do remember when the state passed this, and I thought, boy, coin toss, what a weird way to do it. And here we are. So. Again, just to go into a little bit more detail on the steps. So I mentioned you'll interview all the qualified candidates. All the candidates will be given 4 minutes to answer all the questions. We've talked a little bit about the questions, and those will be posted in chambers, and so everybody gets a chance to see those at the same time. The order of the interviews will be determined by pulling names randomly from a bowl. We talked about this a little bit last week. And then step 2 would be that initial vote, and you would take that vote from among all candidates. So it'll be a roll call vote. So each one of your names will be called, and you'll say one individual that you are nominating. And if one candidate gets a majority of the votes, process is over. That person gets fills the vacancy. If no candidate receives at least 4 votes, then that's where we move to step 3. So I kind of laid out what the potential votes might look like just to show how this might work. So if no candidate gets a majority, the vote should fall into one of these 3 categories. And I think there's one vote combination that I didn't put on here, but it still is the basic idea of how this would work. So if no candidate gets a majority, but 2 candidates are clearly the top 2 vote getters, then those 2 would move on. So if it's one person gets 3 votes, another person gets 3 votes, one person gets 1, those top 2 would move on, and so on, if we can identify those top 2 finalists or top 2 vote getters with that initial vote. There's only one finalist identified, so maybe a 3-2-2 or a 2, and then 5 other individuals get 1 vote each, then this is where we need that tiebreaker. And so what state code says is we have to identify a method by lot. And so what we've chosen to do is to stay with the bowl theme. And so the names of the individuals who tie then would be put into a bowl, a name would be pulled out, the top vote getter, and then that second person would move on, and those would be the top 2. If there's a 3-way tie or more, which is this last scenario there, all the names of people who tied would be put into a bowl, 2 names would be pulled out, they would move on to that next step. So again, I just wanted to put the state code up again. So it does say by lot. So this is why we need to do that. We had some conversations with Councilmember Lundell about, could we do a vote, or is there some sort of a ranked choice voting process we could go through? Unfortunately, no. Based on state code, it specifically says by lot. So this is where we are. So step 4, if we have to go that far and go through the top 2 and have a second vote on just the top 2 candidates, we are proposing that you would re-interview the top 2 candidates. We have another set of questions that we can ask them, and then give them an additional 5 minutes to answer all those questions. And then again, there would be a roll call vote to select between the top 2 candidates, or those 2 candidates. In this case, if neither candidate receives a majority, then we go to a coin toss. And if all 7 of you are voting and vote, we shouldn't get to the coin toss, but if for whatever reason, Salt Lake City just went through this, so they had a council member that was removed, and so they had a 3-3 tie, and so their newest council member was determined by coin toss. So that's just a quick review of the steps. Again, this resolution is required by state code. It outlines those steps 1 through 5, and identifies that fair and transparent process to eliminate candidates by lot. And then most of the rest is just the general recitation of state code for the process. So any questions you have for me?
Any questions for Glenn?
You get to hear this again in a few minutes, so.
Yeah, 20 years ago it was different. That we used to be able to go into closed session after we'd picked 5, and it was a kind of a big deal then.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, this does seem a little cleaner, a little
It's-
quicker.
It is a little simpler, it's a little faster,
Yeah.
so it doesn't drag it on as much.
Okay, that it?
So we do, if that's it for me, we do have a couple of updates that administration has offered to provide. We don't specifically have administrative updates on the agenda, but because they were council questions or requests for updates, we thought that that would be appropriate under council business. So we do have a couple of updates on the Forest Service building and then the Exchange building. So I think Taylor is Jared the man. All right, we'll turn it over to him.
You got, yeah.
Short straw or high card or rolling dice or.
We actually did think about getting a nice deck of cards and
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to get up here and talk about a couple of the projects that are ongoing. So the first one we'll kind of go through is give you an update on what's happening at the Exchange building. And I'm actually really, really excited to tell you that things have been very, very positive and are starting to accelerate and move forward. So as you recall, in the spring we proposed a process to you, which was approved and went through. We've been acting on that. Since that time, the developer / contractor has gone out there. They went around the site. They've cleaned up the site. They've picked up all the brick, the big stone animal heads that had fallen off, cleaned up a lot of that stuff. We've got it preserved. We've got those things on pallets so that they can be reinstalled. We're taking care of those items. They also went in and cleaned out the entire building inside. It actually looks kind of amazing cleaned up, but they've gone in and they've clean that up. So that's kind of what they've been doing on their side. And then the design work is in process as well. So they've got their architects and things already engaged. They're working on it. They've also been able to go out there and peel back the roofing material. They've been able to open up areas of the structural columns. The structural engineering firm has been back in there and been able to do assessments on those. And so far we're getting really positive results. We have one beam in the basement that has some issues, but they think that it can be remedied. So they're excited about that. So very, very positive. So while they've been working on that internally, we have been working to update the memorandum of agreement. So we've been dealing with the historical advisory at the federal level, who has kicked us to SHPO. So we've had meetings with SHPO. We've invited Preservation Utah back to the table. We've had meetings with the Weber County Heritage Foundation. We actually on June 29th took them on a tour of the property. They were really excited about that, to be able to still be engaged and what does that look like moving forward. So I have the draft addendum to the MOA prepared right now that I'll be sending back to all of those agencies again, that just pretty much identifies all the steps that were taken in the original agreement and the final 2 items that needed to be completed still. And those final 2 items were obviously number 1, the preservation of the building and the lobby and the kind of the historical board and telling of the story and the access and things to that, which has been going really well. So it is still moving forward now that we're getting positive reviews on some of the structural portions of it. We're starting the title commitment work. We're refreshing the ALTA survey, taking all of those initial steps. And so it's progressing great. And if at any time you want to see it or you're interested, please let me know. I'd be happy to engage in going and taking a tour through it if you want to see kind of the process that things are going through. But yeah, so that's going really well. Update on the Forest Service building. So if you recall, several years ago, we did an RFP, and the RFP selection that happened out of that, the GIVE group was selected. to be the possible holder of that building in the future. Things kind of went quiet for a minute. And so we've been a little bit worried about kind of what was going on. We have kind of some limited funding that we requested at the time when we took ownership of that. I appreciate Eric Gibson. He's been very highly involved in this. He's been pushing to help move this along with the GIVE group. I can say right now we're making really good progress. We are working on a draft LTDA between us and the GIVE group that will eventually come before this body to approve, but it would set time definite acquisition date. It would actually put into place what we had originally intended, where they would lease it from us before acquisition and start taking over those carrying costs and get them off of the city. They are still engaged, talking to Weber State about activating the first, the bottom floors, and what happens in there and what they can do with that. And so we actually, to be honest with you, I feel a little better about it right now than I probably did maybe 2 months ago. But they're actually now engaged in full planning and kind of they have a 4-building project that they're trying to do. That is obviously one of them. They've got some timelines that they got to meet, which is helping us expedite and get some of these commitments done. But it's progressing as well, and you should be seeing it soon at one of your meetings. Some additional steps on that one as well, as far as moving the acquisition out of our hands and the purchase into theirs. So, this one was not on there, but I did want to follow up a little bit on David's discussion about Union Station campus and everything that's going on. I think he did a great job kind of laying out the vision and what we're trying to accomplish down there. I did want to mention as well, we are actively engaged on working on the building itself. It has some problems. It has some issues. We've had a structural engineer in there to go through and do an ASCE 41. It's a tier 1 evaluation that goes through and analyzes the structural system compared to current environment and current codes that we have today, and what does that look like, and how does it comply. It has a lot of connection issues, which means that in a large seismic event, that building could suffer catastrophic damage. And so as we go through and look at what we need to do to preserve that, that's one of the elements that we need to look at. So we've got that report. We're actively working on that. We also know we have significant drainage issues down there. That basement floods, which is not good. We had to replace the MDP, the main disconnect panel for the electrical, within the last year. That and the transformer that were down there were close to failing. I was a little bit nervous the first time I ever went in there and the basement was flooded. And I'm walking through the water and I walk into the electrical room, and the main bus going in there is about 1.5 inches above the water line. And I went, all right, this is not good. We got that portion taken care of. Right now we have really big system failures in the HVAC system. Half the units are out and are not working. So we're actually trying to work through on a design and what does that look like. So besides just all the campus items, we are very much engaged at looking at the building itself and what do we need to do immediately to be taking care of those. The main boiler has failed up to this point. It is questionable whether we could even supply heat in this coming winter. So we're working through some of those items right now on that structure itself as well. So there is a lot of stuff going on, but any questions on any of those 3 things?
Any questions for Jared?
Just real quick, I know some constituents brought up the bat colony that was at the stock exchange building, if they could be relocated, if there's any update on that.
So I can tell you they're still there. So we do, what will happen at that point when we get to the point that we're repointing the brick and pulling it off? A lot of it's already exposed. That's going to expose a lot of kind of where they're at, which is going to dissuade a lot of them to want to naturally relocate. There is other items, non-lethal type of items that we can do that allow them, that we can, like some screening material where we can go in Because when bats typically come in and land, they'll land like on the wall or, you know, whatever, and then they'll crawl up into wherever. So you can take some screening material and you create little funnels in it that allows them to get out, and they're quite efficient and they get out. But when they come back, they don't necessarily know to go to that little gap to go back in. And so they'll come back and then they can't get back in. And so again, it encourages them to find, you know, a new place to roost without harming them. And so we'll employ all of those type of measures. So.
Anything else?
Yeah, just real quick, you had mentioned the Give Group has a 4-building concept or project that they've got underway. Can you expand a little bit on what the buildings are and what their plans are other than the Forest Service building?
Yeah, so obviously one of them is the Forest Service building. They've also acquired the building that is directly south of the Forest Service building. It's a older apartment complex. They acquired the land that is to the east that are currently right now is vacant.
Right on the corner?
Yeah, and then, yeah, it's like an L shape, kind of comes through there. Comes from Porter and then goes over to 25th. And then they also have acquired right here on it would be the northwest corner of Adams and 26th. That's currently boarded up. They've acquired that property as well.
Anything else? Okay. Let's go ahead and adjourn our work session. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes in the other room. Thanks, everybody.